Okay, so not only are there trial levels at the state level, you also have it at the federal level. Now, federal courts were developed by Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. And when you talk about federal jurisdiction, generally speaking, you're going to be talking about it from two different perspectives, but there's several. But generally, it's going to be a federal question issue or diversity of citizenship. Now, again, there's other ones, but let me go through this. Now, we talk about questions of federal law. Federal question, that could be an issue associated with the U.S. Constitution, and it could also be an issue associated with a federal statute. Now, keep in mind, there's no dollar limit on this, but whenever you're talking about a federal question, that would be a matter for the district courts. Now, also, if the United States is a party, then you would go to federal courts. If there's a disagreement between states, if Georgia and Tennessee get in a disagreement over something, it would be heard in federal courts. But you also have an interesting one, and that's diversity of citizenship. Now, if the plaintiff and defendant are from different states, again, let's talk about Georgia and Tennessee, and the claim is more than $75,000, meaning it's $75,000 and a penny, then you can take the matter to federal court. All right, and this is an example of how to guard against a state court's biasness, towards its own citizens. But generally, when you talk about it, you think about federal question and diversity of citizenship. Now, when you go to court, the first level, the trial level, is going to be your district courts. All right, they are going to be your federal trial courts. They can review lawsuits, receive evidence, evaluate testimony, impanel juries, resolve disputes, and it's all done by the federal rules of civil procedure. So your district court on the federal level is the same thing as your trial level at state court. Then you have the Court of Appeals. Okay. Again, if you don't like what happens at trial, you go to the Federal Court of Appeals. Tennessee, I believe, is in the 6th Circuit. Georgia is in the 11th Circuit. There's 12 of them total. The Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit handles appeal from special courts. All right, U.S. Claims Court, Administrative Decisions, Court of Military Appeals, all these various places. Now, so if you don't like it at trial, you go to the appellate courts. But if it's a special one, then you would go to, obviously, the special areas. Now, after the appeals level, again, very similar to what you have at the state, you can go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Just like at the state Supreme Court, you have to apply for a writ of certiorari. Now, it's, you have to ask, say it's a matter of federal importance, it's a constitutional issue, conflicting decisions of U.S. circuit courts. If you go to the Supreme Court, their decision becomes the law of the land, and it's not subject to review. Okay? Now, when we talk about judicial review, this is the ultimate power to invalidate actions by the President or Congress. And that's part of federalism. Okay? You have 3 branches of government. You have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. The judicial branch has judicial review to review what the executive branch and the legislative branch have done. Judicial restraint is strict constructionalism and can change from the political process. Whereas judicial activism, courts help correct society's wrongs, and value-oriented and policy-directed. Now, nature of judicial process. Now, how does this happen? Now, we have a case. It needs to be decided. Now, you can use existing law and precedent. Again, I think I've brought some of this up in the past. If you have case law out there, that is going to be, decisions that have already been made. It's precedent. And under the doctrine of stare decisis, a court needs to use that information in making their decisions. Or the courts can also create law where none exists. Perhaps there hasn't been any case law on the matter in question, so the judges, or the justices in this case, have the power to create case law. Or they can refuse to apply case law or find a matter unconstitutional. So there's several different things that the courts can do. But keep in mind, one thing that I've learned early on is judges do not like to be overturned. So, if you do go to court and you make your arguments, I would recommend that you go in there with case law, preferably an attorney, so that you can show the judge, hey, listen, this is what's happened in the past. It's substantially similar to the situation at hand, and I would ask that you would rule in my favor. That's what I try to do whenever I go to court.